This became the new normal in Hong Kong in 2019. Almost daily violence between masked protesters and police. The spark that eventually set the streets and emotions on fire was a decision to ignore the outcry of millions of people and push through a controversial extradition bill, which would have allowed any suspect in the city to be tried in the courts of mainland China.
And the people just went nuts. People thought if we don't fight now, this is our last fight. And if we don't fight now, we'll have no chance. And we're fighting.
Claudia Mo was one of the legislators who marched with hundreds of thousands to protest against the bill. Hong Kong's chief executive said the bill was needed to extradite a Hong Kong murder suspect from Taiwan. But people feared it not only put them at the mercy of China's Communist Party-controlled legal system, but would also allow Beijing to seize anyone who set foot in the city. The unrest continued into July, and then the protesters raised the stakes. Al Jazeera was one of the first international networks to broadcast masked young people storming the Hong Kong government headquarters in an attempt to disrupt any more meetings by the legislature.
The bill is dead.
And finally, 2 months later, Chief Executive Carrie Lam conceded and withdrew the bill. But the unrest continued.
As the movement went on, the focus changed to police brutality. And that kind of like making people think that Hong Kong is becoming more like an authoritarian regime. And that brings more people out as a result.
Kelvin Lam was voted into office in historic district council elections in November. Nearly half of Hong Kong's 7 million people went to the polls, giving the city's pro-democracy camp and opposition parties control of a political body for the first time.
Hong Kong will not be the same again because the anger or the discontent of the society will still be kind of embedded in people's minds.
It has been mostly quiet since the start of the year. There are still sporadic protests, but instead of thousands on the streets, it's now hundreds or dozens. And police are much quicker to use crowd control measures and make arrests. But many fear this could just be the calm before the storm.
There is so much hatred between the protesters and the establishment. Hong Kong can never be really governed again.
The protesters here say the government hasn't made any attempt to address their concerns. Instead, it's taking a tougher stance against dissent, making people fear that it's just a matter of time before scenes like this once again take over the streets. Divya Gopalan, Al Jazeera, Hong Kong.